not counting gang violence.
Oh my God. Go, run. Oh.
We are seeing, if you like, an era of populist political violence in America. Charlie Kirk's assassination is one of many political violent acts we've seen in the last 12 months.
To my great fellow Americans, I am filled with grief and anger at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk on a college campus in Utah.
Cameron Stewart is the Australian's chief international correspondent. Cam, Charlie Kirk has been murdered at the age of 31. How significant is this moment in American politics?
I think it's quite a dangerous moment for America, Claire. It is a slippery slope that America is on at the moment when it comes to the way people react to political debate. It's a very polarised society, politically, economically, and it's really manifesting itself in terrible ways. Now, of course, we don't know as we speak the motivation of the person that killed Charlie Kirk. It would be a logical assumption to assume, though, it was something to do with his political views. And if so, it is an abhorrent manifestation of a trend we've seen all too often. We are seeing, if you like, an era of populist political violence in America. We have seen that Charlie Kirk's assassination is one of many political violent acts we've seen in the last 12 months and also in the last 5 years.
I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal.
Kirk was a conservative voice for the social media age. He was just 31. He was very vocal on platforms like TikTok and Instagram, but he also, in real life, went to debate people who opposed his ideas on university campuses where he'd hold these big rallies debating people who had different opinions about everything from abortion to gun rights. It's particularly ironic, isn't it, that he was killed in that moment when he's on a university campus talking to people, debating ideas in public.
That's right. In fact, the tent that was above Charlie Kirk when he was shot had the words "prove me wrong" on it. And that was his mantra. He would go to university campuses, he'd get people to ask him questions, he'd debate them, he would throw his political ideas out there. And, no matter whether you agree or disagree with Charlie Kirk, I think that's actually irrelevant. The fact is that he was promoting the marketplace of ideas. And that surely is healthy, regardless of what side of politics anyone is on. So it is very ironic, is at a university campus, exactly the sort of thing that anyone who's interested in free speech should be doing. And this happens. It's a real tragedy.
Charlie Kirk was famously a supporter of the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. He, in fact, said that some gun deaths a year were the price Americans had to pay for freedom, for the right to bear arms as the Constitution guaranteed them. Now he's been shot dead, and of course his enemies are very quick to suggest that this is the chickens coming home to roost for him. How do you think this will fit into the conversation about gun control in the United States?
I don't think it will change that conversation, Claire. There's been so many cycles of this. When I was the correspondent there, I went to Las Vegas when they shot some 60 people. A gunman shot 60 people at that point. There was a whole range of big mass shootings in schools, etc., probably even more so than there are right now. We have this exact same cycle in America when a prominent person or a mass shooting happens. There's a lot of discussion about it for a very short time. Occasionally, people talk about doing something and then it just gets lost in the political process.
America has a shocking history of political violence, but is there something different about what's happening now, Cam?
It's a very different American society, Claire. I mean, it's interesting because you think about the way this has happened in American history. You're right, there has been a lot of this stuff. I mean, in the 1960s, for example, we had both Kennedys shot, Martin Luther King. We had two incredibly polarizing debates, the Civil Rights Movement and the Vietnam War. And so, that was a hugely turbulent time, and people wondered at that point in time whether America could ever come out of that cycle of violence. Well, look, it did. Punctuated by other violence. But what we are seeing now is a slightly different manifestation of this violence, and I think quite a concerning one, in the sense that America is as politically polarized now as it has been for generations. When you go out to small towns in America, especially in sort of Trump regions, Republican regions, there is a real distrust about the institutions and the leaders of their country. And that's because their lot has not improved very much at all. They see wealth is very unequal in America. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. And of course, that's the phenomenon that helped Trump get elected in 2016 and again in the last election. But, you know, that's not, Trump didn't create that. I mean, Trump is a polarizing president, but it's wrong to say that Trump has created that. He's perpetuated some of those trends. Certainly, Trump doesn't trust institutions. You can tell that by the people he's put in charge of the health department, the FBI, et cetera, he put his own people in. But the manifestation of this polarization in America comes from the haves and the have-nots. And what that's done is that when it comes to political debate, people are very intolerant of other people having a different view.
We're speaking on Thursday afternoon when the FBI is still searching for the shooter in this incident. They briefly detained someone and have now released that person. Always when there's one of these shootings, there's a very quick look at the possible motivations of the person involved. When there was a shooting of Donald Trump in July 2024, he was shot in the ear, famously, at a rally in Pennsylvania. It was difficult to tell the political persuasion of that shooter, Thomas Crooks, who was shot dead by the Secret Service. He was a registered Republican, but he'd also donated to the Democrats. Is there a way to frame the left versus the right in terms of who is actually carrying out political violence?
Look, it's very difficult because the truth is that most of the people who carry out these acts are mentally unstable. They've been, a lot of them have fallen into being manipulated by the dark recesses of the internet, conspiracy theories. You know, these are not normal people who pull out guns and try to kill leaders. But you are absolutely right. There is no ideology in America owns this violence. It's perpetrated on both sides. We had the 2 assassination attempts against Donald Trump, and while we don't know the motivations actually of those shooters or would-be shooters, you know, it's clearly they were hostile towards the president. We also had earlier this year the assassination of a Democrat congresswoman from Minnesota, and we had a violent arson attack on the governor's residence in Philadelphia of Josh Shapiro, again a Democrat. I mean, so it's all spectrums of the political divide that are carrying out this violence. So I think we need to look well beyond the ideology. And I think one of the problems perhaps in the next couple of days in the debate in America, Claire, with Charlie Kirk's death is that, you know, you've already got a couple of conservative commentators saying, you know, we must avenge this is war. I mean, the real danger here is copycat killings. Someone who's a bit unstable, who considers there should be a vengeance, retaliation for his death. Of course, that would be a disaster, and that's one of the problems with this sort of violence is it does perpetrate potentially copycat killings. But it's certainly, I think the ideology of it is actually just not nearly as important as the concept of people being willing to cross that threshold and commit political acts of violence, regardless of what the ideology of the victim is.
You've raised children in the United States, Cam. In ordinary life, day-to-day life, even in places like Washington, D.C., you know, does it feel scary to have children at school, to have people going out to football games, to be yourself out on the streets? Does it feel that dangerous in the United States?
Look, my honest answer is no, in the sense I just sort of tried to put it to one side. But look, there was a part of me. My child was in elementary school, which is our primary school. And he spent his 9th birthday coming back home, reciting the lockdown drills he had in his classroom that day. And so, look, these things definitely prey on you when you live in America. But, you know, I mean, generally speaking, it's a fantastic place to live. It is just a society that is suffering, I think, from the crumbling of the civic and social guardrails that once stopped people from sliding from political dissent and political opinion.
When Donald Trump was shot in July 2024, he responded very bravely. He stood up and pumped the air with his fist and said, "Fight, fight, fight." I think that probably helped in the eyes of his supporters and maybe even some of his critics change their perceptions of him or entrench their perceptions of him as a leader. Can you see this particular shooting having any kind of political impact like that?
Look, I think it's really important now for Donald Trump to send a positive message and a unifying message, if that's possible. I mean, we saw a very good reaction from all sides of politics to Charlie Kirk's shooting, people saying it's disgraceful. Barack Obama, Joe Biden, all the prominent Democrats came out and said this is totally unacceptable. Across the political spectrum, it was a very strong reaction of outrage. And look, that's a good start, but I really think that someone like Trump needs to really give the most positive message he can possibly give at this point in time. It's very important because, Charlie Kirk was a huge part of the Trump movement. I mean, he was the prime rallier of the youth vote to Donald Trump. And, Charlie Kirk had a resonance well beyond America. I mean, I have a teenage son, Claire, and, he woke up this morning and all his friends, that's all they were talking about. It's and whether they support him or didn't support him, it was just big news. I mean, he is a big figure in the youth movement, not just in America. And so I think Trump's reaction is going to be very important.
In that way, is this moment kind of the Martin Luther King moment for a new generation, for that TikTok generation, where suddenly they see that their political figureheads are so vulnerable?
That's right. In fact, I think for a lot of that teenagers today, they just haven't really seen this happen. I mean, they did see, of course, the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, but really, it's this murder is horrific, and it's a very prime time thing, unfortunately. And so I think it will shock a lot of younger people. And again, younger people, let's just hope that they react appropriately and sensibly here, and that we don't have sort of vigilantes running around in the US trying to avenge this, as some commentators have called for.